Good morning, baseball fans, and welcome back to Dan's Vintage Baseball PC. Do not be fooled by that fancy name. It's just me and some friends talking about baseball cards. Friends today are friends that we've had on once before for this very show. It's called the Community Service Project. I don't know if I should go through the whole reason by it, but the joke was that two guys with bigger channels are doing community service by hanging out with me. But I think we're doing a little better these days. So we have brought in a fourth member of the Community Service Project. So it's not just two guys, giving me a hassle about how small my channel is. So now we can even this up. So let me bring him in now. We got 5 topics to cover, and we're gonna have fun with them. There is Mike. Hello, Mike.
Good morning. Oh, good
There's
afternoon.
Jake. Hello,
Hello.
Jake. And there is Greg. Good afternoon, sir, although it's morning for you.
It is. It's 9:06.
I think the last time we did this thing 6 or so weeks ago, we did it at like 9 o'clock in the morning, which was like 6 o'clock in the morning for your time.
Just
Greg's still mad at us.
trying to torture Greg on that one.
Yeah, I'm back though. Must not have been that bad.
Well, we had to do it earlier because Mike gets up at like 3 a.m. and goes to bed at night at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So, he's getting a little tired.
Big welcome to Jake.
Thanks. Thank you for having me as part of the community service project. And I'm the one now receiving the community service from the other 3 of you because I have the smallest channel of the 4 of us. So
Well, I should mention I don't keep track of these things, except that I do.
I deduct this time from my taxes.
I hit 1,200 subscribers this week, so
Way to go. Congrats, Dan.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
but it's all about the people. It's not about the numbers. So you know how it is. So anyway, we're back again for the Community Service Project. Greg and I actually hung out together and had some hugs and did a cool picture of us giving you guys the thumbs up and then giving you the finger, which I thought was cool. I'm not going to show this because it's a family channel. And but you guys didn't come to Strongsville. And
I had a good reason.
You had a good reason.
To be clear.
I also had a good reason. I already had plans with family that weekend.
Yeah, well, then we had the same reason. But yeah. But
I think Jake's reason was much better because he ended up going to Newport to a wedding at a place that I have scouted out as a wedding possibility.
For who?
In a few years. I'm not talking about that. It's personal. I'm not getting married. I've been married for 32 years.
I was going to say, I'm like, who's getting married? Yeah, no, it was an amazing time. I had major FOMO, of course, for you guys. I did get to go to a card show last weekend at least and made some good pickups. But it looked like living vicariously through all the Strongsville stuff was fun on the outside, but it certainly made me emboldened me to want to be there next year. And I thank you to Dan for pointing out that the dates have already been set for next year. So I confirmed with Abby and I will 100% be there. And it's going to be right after I have a milestone birthday. And they say life begins at 40 and my life will begin at Strongsville. So.
Well, so that'll bring us around to our first question of the day, which is this. And I think you're going to like this, Greg. Isn't this great? I did the graphics. See, it's very midlife.
Very advanced, Dan.
It's very nice.
Was Strongsville show the greatest event in human history? It sounds like a ridiculous question, but I was talking to I should mention that Mike was on early. He was on before even me. So you slackers came on much later. That most great events in human history sort of correspond with the end of terrible things, like the end of World War II and the end of war. Like they sort of correspond. Strongsville doesn't have any negativity. It's only people getting together, having fun, having a great community, showing love to each other, talking about things that they love together. And I don't remember any negativity at all. So I feel like Strongsville is in the running for the greatest event in human history. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, I can go. I don't know if I'm choppy or not. You guys are a little choppy on my end, so if I cut out, you just throw rocks at me.
Sounds fine to me.
Sounds
Great.
fine. Yeah.
It was really fun. And the scary part was I thought the 2024 Strongsville was going to be unattainable, and I think the 2025 Strongsville was better. I was a little worried that it would be too crowded. And there were a couple of moments it was pretty crowded, but it was better than 2024. And so because of that, it's it was a lot of fun. It was more fun than national, and it was certainly the most fun I've ever had at a card show experience.
Well, talk a little bit, because I'm not into trade nights, but it seems like trade night was the YouTube get together. Am I understanding that right?
No, there were two things. There was
Yeah,
the Friday
so-
night.
I've watched a million videos about Strongsville, and
Yeah.
I'm still not clear on it.
Okay,
There
I'll
was
go
the
through
Friday
it.
night
So
Christopher, Missouri get together. That was the YouTube get together. There was a Saturday night trade night, which ended up being very similar in terms of the social aspect to it, but it was a lot more about cards.
Yeah, it seemed like that Friday night the Chris from Missouri hosted thing was kind of just like socializing. It's like him and Moynihan did like a live like showcase thing, right? But other than that,
Yep.
it seemed like, based on what I could see, it was just like hanging out, whereas the trade night was transactional.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I went into this this year with two thoughts. One was that, correct, was it going to be as good as last year? And I had some trepidation about that. But the other thing is I had such high expectations that I was worried that I was going to be disappointed. I was worried that something was going to go wrong. So there would be some issue. I would have problems with this or that. And I had some worry in my mind when I went out there. And what was nice about coming home was that none of those manifested themselves. So, yes, greatest event in human history. There are people with Strongsville videos saying the greatest experience of their hobby life. And there was one guy yesterday, I think it was, I can't remember his name. Cash Cards. Cash Cards says it was one of the best weekends of his life, which I thought was amazing for somebody to say
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
So, Jake, are we
Rob,
going to
is
drive
it-
together next year?
We could do that. I don't know, that you're I'm on the way for you, so I think, or we figure it out, but that might be fun. Maybe the Mike and Jake road trip. Yeah, we can talk about that for sure. But no, I mean, you guys, it looked at me. I had every intention of going until they announced what the weekend was going to be, and then it didn't work out for me. I even had this I didn't tell you guys this. I had this when they did announce the date, Abby and I had a bunch of discussions about how I could possibly fit in going to Strongsville for a brief amount of time. Obviously, I wouldn't really have been able to be there on Saturday. Even not that long ago, I had this harebrained idea that I would get up on Sunday and fly to Cleveland first thing in the morning. But the reason why I didn't end up doing that is because I felt like most people would be gone by the time I even got there.
Sunday, I think Graig was gone at dawn on Sunday.
Yeah. And that would have been
yeah.
the big reason. The only reason really at that point to go, if I couldn't be there for the whole weekend, would be to see you guys. And if there were no guys there to see, then it didn't really make sense. The only other option would have been maybe I could have gone Friday, but it was hard to get direct flights even from Boston to Cleveland, and so it just didn't work out this time. But we did have serious conversations about how I could fit in going to Strongsville.
But Jake, you're going to the woefully inferior national, right?
I will be at the national, yes.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that. I think, to me, when I see all the stuff about Strongsville, it makes me think it's like the best of all the worlds, where there's this obviously an amazing amazing assemblage of cards that are there to buy, but then the people, and it's not as sort of crazy as I haven't been to the national, but it's the only experience I have with these big shows is at Shriners and also White Plains. And I know, Dan, obviously you've been to all of these different shows. In terms of like the size of the space where the dealers are and all this stuff, how does Shriners compare to Strongsville? Like,
the room
like the room
is a little bit smaller, I would say.
at
I
where?
would say it's more of a rectangle, where Shriners.
Isn't it just an ice rink?
Yeah, it's an ice rink.
Oh, sorry, compared to the Shriners. I was thinking compared to the National, yeah.
It's an ice rink, but what they did this year, which was really smart, was they took SGC's entire like thing with the tables and all that stuff, and they put it outside of the rink. So they cleared up probably at least 5 more tables to be able to. And the table total this year was 168 was the number that I counted. So I didn't go around counting.
That's significantly small. That's significantly smaller than Shriners in terms of the number of tables.
But you don't get. There's a lot of stuff you don't really get there. You certainly don't get any modern. You don't get a lot of the stuff that I saw at Shriners was like pennants and books and a lot
Mugs.
of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You really don't get that much of that at Strongsville. It is most definitely more of a card show than Shriners is.
Okay. Well, I'm excited.
So we have another question coming up.
Hang on, just real quick. The one thing that really sold me on Strongsville, I don't remember who said it, but somebody said Strongsville is the National without all the glitz and glamour, the breakers, all that stuff. And then I was like, okay, I'm sold. Yeah, there you go. I thought it was one of you two.
I called it nonsense, though.
Yeah, I think that Cleveland did a nice job, a better job than Chicago and Atlantic City did with that nonsense, as you call it, because it was in a different room. And I ventured in there obviously, and I walked around, but the breakers and the loudness and the nonsense is definitely a big part of the National.
I would say the way I described it, and if you guys can't hear me because you're all frozen, you guys go ahead and tell me and I'll just restart my computer. But the way that I see it is it's like you're living in the dorms. And the dorms, you're in this very basic room and it's time to eat. So you just walk down from your dorm room and you meet your friends in the lobby and then you go eat. And then instead of going to class and walking to class with your friends, you're walking to a card show loaded with vintage stuff. So the moment that the hotel can't hold everyone, everything changes for Strongsville. Because being able to stay on site and being able to be a participant in living in those dorms, that's a huge part of it. Because at the National, you're like, hey, we'll try to meet up. Hey, where are you? I can't get a hold of you because my Wi-Fi is not working. I can't text. My phone's not working. But like, that's not an issue. That's not an issue at Strongsville. You just, every time you get in the elevator, every time you walk down the hall, you see 4 people that you know. You're all staying in the same place. You walk 80 yards across the parking lot and you're in the show. You all go to lunch together. You all eat together. You all hang out together because you're all right there. And so my concern is when we get to that point that we outgrow the hotel and we outgrow the venue, then what happens? Because that's what makes it special.
So the hotel must be pretty big. Do you think it was full?
It's 5 floors, and I don't know what is there on each floor. Maybe 80 rooms, so 400 rooms.
Hotel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those hotels that's shaped like an eye. So it's got like a big center corridor, and then it's got out in both directions. I was on 2, which made it easy because the elevators were out, or one set of elevators were out. But but I know guys, the 4 Collectors guys were on 4, the other guys were on 3. I think there was a bunch of guys on the main level. So we were moved. We weren't all in one block, but yeah, Greg's right. I mean, I used the dorm analogy on another show recently, so I stole that directly from you, Greg.
Jake, if we're driving together, I'm not sharing a room with you.
I wouldn't ask you to. Don't worry. I think I can get my own room. It's fine.
I'm too old to share a room with anybody. It was just not something that was in my DNA anymore. So the only person I share a room with is my wife. So,
yep.
Anyway, So we had so Greg, you had a show on Friday, which I watched and commented on, and it kind of touches on both of these issues. One was the whole Strongsville being, um, you were more impressed by how tight the community was, how everybody was so positive, and I totally agree with that. And that to me made it an incredible event. But the other thing was, whoops, I didn't want that. That's what I wanted. This part of it, which I think is similar to your first point, that eye appeal is now king. Comps are less of an issue because deep down, every collector should be their own grading company, which is kind of a way of saying that if you're looking at a card in a display case and you look at the number and that's all you're basing your comps on, you're cheating yourself. Be your own grading company. Look at all the corners. Look at all the technical stuff. Look at the eye appeal, the centering, the back, everything, and make your own grade before you make an offer on a card. That's kind of what I'm saying here, and I think this is not a word for word a serious question, but in essence it kind of is, because I think it attaches to the collector a greater burden on them to make decisions based on what you think the card should be, not what some guy sitting in an office in Boca Raton thinks the card should be.
So I use a lot of analogies, and the reason I do that is because of teaching. What happens is I have to relate whatever I'm teaching to something, the prior knowledge that a student has, and then that way they can really understand it. So I'm always using analogies. And I just taught in my class buying cars, figuring out the monthly payment, how's the interest rate affect it. And we go through the first day is all about buying a new car. And all the cars are the same when you buy a new car. The hard thing is valuing a used car, because used cars could have a million different issues, a million different options, a million different dings and dents. And vintage cars are used cars. They're much harder to value and they're much harder to comp. Whereas a new car is a new car, just like ultra modern cards. They're all pretty much the same. What's the difference between a 9 and a 10? Nothing that I can see, but I'm sure under heavy magnification you can. And so it's very much like that, where there could be, a 2008 Honda Accord that's worth 15,000 and a 2008 Honda Accord worth 5,000, because they're so dramatically different. But they might fall into the good category or the excellent category, but they're still very, very different in some of the things that they do and don't have, and some of the condition issues. And that's very much what I think vintage is. And when grading came out, because I was in cards when grading started, my dad was great. He was one of the first people I know and saw grading cards. And what happened was the number kind of became, oh, well, I guess it's a 7. And it was just, that's the rule. That's what it is. And I think one of the benefits that's happening for collectors as a result of all of the inconsistencies that are happening and the changes in the grading is that people are going, wait a second. Just because they said it's a 7 doesn't mean it's actually a 7. Or maybe it is technically a 7, but it's not a 7 to me. And so I think that what's happened is the grading companies and their changes and their inconsistencies has actually put us back in the driver's seat, pun intended, where you actually get to decide for yourself what it is instead of relying on them the whole time.
Yeah, and I you talk about 7s, but I think that there's far more variance in the low end of the spectrum, which is where I'm typically shopping. So if you spotlight me, Dan, this is the one I just bought yesterday.
I'm not spotlighting
You idiot.
Hold on. Let me see if I can get this. Solo layout. There
This
you go.
is a 1, right? But it's well centered. The corners are, at least 2 of the corners are rough, but this is a nice looking 1. And if you shop in this end of the pool like I do, you have to be much more careful. Okay, thank you. You have to be much more careful with the card that you're buying, because 7s all, I think, are fairly close to each other, whereas 1s are always, there's a massive spectrum of what a 1 could be.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of these points. I think that the challenge becomes how you approach the sellers when it comes to these kinds of things, because the seller is going to want to try to get as much as they can, and they're going to stick to whatever the comps in whatever grade it is that is going to give them the most money. So we can say all this stuff that we want about comps don't matter or grades don't matter or that kind of thing. Well, they matter a lot to the people trying to sell a card. So and you don't have to buy it. I remember what was it? There was a cardboard and cold ones recently that Sammy and Jason had Darren on, and Darren was talking about some interactions that he's had with dealers, and it was just kind of, this whole thing of like, well, this card looks like this card is a 6. Well, it looks like it's a 4, and I'm not going to pay that much. It's like, and then it's kind of this like back and forth. That's where we run into I think that's like, we have the power. I agree, Greg, on that idea that we as the buyers have the power in terms of we're more astute and more educated on how the grading actually works and what the grades actually mean and what they don't mean. But I think that most sellers are just going to try to stick to getting as much as they can for whatever the grade a card is, and so we have to kind of compete with the people that are willing to spend whatever it is to get whatever the card is that they want.
So can I just butt in here for a second, because I think that's a great point, but it cuts the other way. So the sellers, I think, are in essence a little bit more attached to the grades than we are. So the example that you give, and I've tried this before with sellers, is to say this is graded a 4, but it was graded like 15 years ago. You can tell by the cert number that it's really a 2, so I'm going to pay you a 2. And sellers are like, no, sorry, that's not the way it works. And so, you can work a little bit on that, but you're never going to get it to the point. But the flip of that is that because they are moored to numbers more than we are, you get situations like Greg with the Sandy Koufax rookie card. Tim Payne is a smart guy, an experienced seller, and a good guy, but to a certain extent, he's moored to the fact that has a 4.5, I think it was. This is clearly not a 4.5. If under any circumstances, this card is like a 6 or a 7. And I've held it in my hand. I looked at it but Tim Payne is stuck to a certain extent that he can't price that like a 7 because nobody's going to buy it because it says 4.5 on it. So he has to negotiate with Greg on a high number for 4.5, but still a number that is not even a high number. I think you've gotten right around comps, maybe even a little under comps on that. And that's the situation where being your own grading company actually benefits you. And my friend Brett, who I drove to Strongsville with, used this expression to me, and I think it's brilliant in some ways and it's cynical in other ways, is that when we're buyers, we're not looking for good deals. We're looking for mistakes. And that SGC 4.5 Sandy Koufax is a mistake. That should be graded like a 6. So you win because you found the mistake. And Tim Payne can't tell you that I'm pricing this at a 6 because that's what it should be, because he's more to a certain extent to the numbers.
Yeah, and if you're looking for a 6 value, or not 6 value, but if your budget is roughly a 6, I'm not going to buy a 6 that has 80-20 centering, and that's what PSA standards are, is 80-20 or better. There's no way I'm going to buy a 6 with 80-20 centering. I would rather have a 1 with great centering that looks like a 6. The number is only important to me as it pertains to what I'm looking for in terms of budget. And if I say I have, $700 for this card, that is roughly what a 6 is. But I'll gladly take one for $150 that's a 1 that looks like a 6, and then take the rest of that money for something else.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's like it's a guide,
Yeah. So you have anything else to add, Greg, or should we move on to question number?
Yeah, I do. I do. It's again, I don't know what you guys can hear and what you can't. So I know
we can hear you.
Your audio is perfect.
Yeah, your audio is fine.
Your video is too, in fact.
Yeah. You've
It's
never
probably
looked better.
It's probably better for everyone. I think right now is one of the best opportunities in the history of cards to get great deals, because half of people are still stuck on the number, and the grading is as harsh as it's ever been. So if you can find a card that is graded harshly and priced even close to what that number generally sells for, you are getting an incredible deal that didn't used to be an opportunity that is right now an opportunity. So it is a fantastic buying opportunity. So what everyone I think should be doing, or I don't want to tell people what to do, but what people could be doing is going out, finding recently graded cards and a dealer who sells based on not what the card looks like, but what the number is. Those are the people right now you should be trying to buy from. And the dealers that just are number blind, all they do is look at the number. They're card blind, and all they do is rely on the number. That's where you should be selling your old dogs in high numbers to. And it's an opportunity that a lot of people could be taking advantage of, and they're not. I mean, that's why when you see a guy like, my buddy Adam, Splendid Sports, when he has a 10 that looks like a 7 and he sells it for 10 prices, and then he goes out and he buys a 7 that looks like a 10 and he pays 7 prices. Orlando has been doing some of that recently too, on his videos and stuff. It is a wonderful opportunity for people to get more for their money, and windows like that don't stay open for very long. And I think what my video was trying to do is say that window's starting to close, because some people are starting to buy cards for what they actually look like instead of what they're actually graded like. And 5 years ago, that was not, I mean, it happened occasionally, but now it's really happening.
Couldn't agree more. So, question number 3. Whoops. So, a little bit of a pivot here, a little personal. Should For Collectors trademark vintage trade night? The question really is vintage trade night and its success at Strongsville going to create a lot of copycats, and is it something that we're going to see move through the vintage world and become a thing? And I should say right off the bat that there was a post on Net54, someone, very well-known someone, trying to create a vintage trade night down in Dallas, Texas, I think it was. Not anybody you guys know personally, but wanting to do a vintage trade night right off the heels of our success, which I thought was, I don't know, maybe a little questionable. Thoughts?
Anything that we can do to trademark or prevent the big guys from coming in and taking over and ruining, I'm all for.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the question, is like what is the value in trademarking it? I think that's what you guys at For Collectors would have to kind of determine. But I agree, because we're looking at the sort of value, and so right before we came on, I mentioned that Chris Sewell just posted the video of his sort of thought experiment about different groups of cards and what has gained value since last July and what's lost value. And the vintage cards gained value according to his measurements over since last July, the group that he had presented. So it's the type of thing that makes me wonder about, I know that it feels like a lot of the money in the hobby is towards modern stuff, but is there going to be are more people going to get hip to the realization of how much opportunity there is for growth and value in vintage, and is that going to pervade into other areas? And that would include, we hear a lot, and they happen all over the place, of modern and ultra modern trade nights and trade things. This was the first real vintage trade night, I think, that's ever happened. And so is that going to be something that now the big guys start to take advantage of? So it might make sense to explore a trademark. And thankfully for collectors, there's a lawyer that's part of the group. So
that will be part of my rant.
I want to piggyback on that a little bit because I think that us old guys don't really understand what a trade night even means. What a trade night means is, and I'm not saying you guys, but what a trade night means is it's just a pop-up card show. It's a card show in the lobby where everybody takes their cards and they put them out and they're for sale. And
But
there
that's not a
have been a
trade night,
couple.
right? Because I would never go to a trade night because I'm not interested in trading. But then I heard a lot of people talking about selling their cards at trade night, and I was like, well, maybe I'd be interested in that after all. Sorry, go ahead.
That's why it's confusing is the name of it, but we're not hip. See, the young kids call it trade night, and that's what
Say
it is.
that
It's
again.
not trade night. It's a pop-up card show. And it's basically when collectors or buyers, not professional dealers, are selling stuff and they just kind of put it out. It's like when you go down Times Square and there's a guy out there and opens up his thing, he's got watches in there, right? It's like that's trade night.
Opens up what?
That's what trade night. He's got watches or whatever he's got in there, and so that's what
I'm going to set up
ahead,
a
Dan.
3-card Monte at the next trade night.
So that's trade night. And so what it was is people brought stuff that they're ready to move, and they're ready to move it. And these are all people that are used to getting 80%. So people that are used to getting 80%, they're like, I can get 90%. There's some good deals. So when you walk around the room and people are used to getting 80%, and now they're willing to they're going to get 90%, and the people buying are going to pay 90% because these people are ready to move on from it. It's also someone you know and trust. It's also this quaint little situation. It's fun. I mean, there were some insane deals going on in that room, like absolutely insane, because people were selling stuff for 90% instead of getting 80%. And there was a lot of good stuff. It was just people's collections were going in different directions. And that's why it was great. Now, there have been trade nights at the National that were vintage trade nights. I watched a video of Ryan Nolan like 3 years ago going to a vintage trade night at the National, and he did some massive deal where he had like 10 cards and he moved into a bigger card. It wasn't heavily advertised as a vintage trade night, but it was a trade night, one of the National trade nights where it was mostly vintage stuff. And
Go ahead. Don't let me interrupt you. Go ahead.
But that being said, you have to have a good enough amount of people at a show that are interested in vintage in order to pull that off. And at the National, we're all old guys. Our knees and ankles are hurting, and we're ready to go back
Speak
to
for
our room
yourself.
and crash. And
Yeah,
the
youngin'.
kids, the kids are still up until 3 a.m. And so I think that it's a great idea when it works, but not every setting works for it. But Strongsville is a perfect setting for it, and it could work at the National because there's enough vintage collectors that this vintage focused trade night is going to be here. But that's why they happen in lobbies and they happen on the floor in the hallways because it's just a card show where you just pop up and open up your coat with watches and shells and things.
Here's why I think you should definitely trademark it, because I would thoroughly enjoy you threatening to sue Jeff Wilson for starting up a vintage trade night. Jeff, really?
Yeah, I think to Greg's point, like I think the thing that works with the Strongsville side of it, and the thing that where it may not work other places, because it sounds to me, and based off what you guys have said, that the organizers of Strongsville were 100% behind it. Not only that, it was like they let you guys. Like,
Yeah.
I saw Theo and John like handing out the flyers, and like it was on the media pass also, right? Like it was that the trade night was happening, and you guys had a big dealer in Howard Chasser who was a sponsor as well. And it sounds like there's maybe going to be others I've heard hints of that from you, Dan, or other folks that other folks want to get on it. That's great. But to me, it's like other dealer or other promoters of these shows, they may not be as into it. Like they may want their pound of flesh or whatever. And it sounds like the National, like, I don't know if the National is like sanctioning these trade nights. They don't need to, and they probably don't. They think it's infringing on what they want to do. So you're lucky with Strongsville that the organizers were so into it.
That's a great point, and there's a whole bunch of things I want to cover here. One is that the Ryan Nolan thing I'm familiar with because I own a card that came out of that whole thing, and I don't think it was a vintage trade night. I think that because Ryan was doing mostly vintage, the people that he showed at that trade night were mostly vintage people. I think that was sort of a much bigger trade night that was primarily modern, but you saw the vintage because you saw his camera was there. And he bought a whole stack of 51 Burke Ross, and I ended up with the spawn out of that. So that's something that I remember very specifically. Yes, a lot of it is guys opening up their things to show watches kind of scenario and lobbies and pop-ups and all that. And that's part of the reason why a lot of these show owners and show promoters don't like them, is because they feel like it's competition. And that's part of what happened at the National in recent years, where they were sponsored by like Card Collector 2 or whatever. People that were setting up were not participating in the National. People that were showing up there were not participating in the National because a lot of it was modern, and the National didn't have that many modern dealers, whatever it was. So I think the National is a little bit sensitive about it being a competitive event rather than being a complimentary event. And that's one of the things that we're coming up against in terms of talking to them about it for this year or possibly next year. But the great thing about the people who ran Strongsville, it's Steve and Mikey and that group that runs the expo, is that they said specifically they wanted it to be a complimentary event, and that we felt like we were better to be a complimentary event because we're collectors. We're guys that are going to go in the show. They're going to buy in the show. That, you know, a lot of the people that were there on Saturday were selling because they wanted to make money to go buy more cards the next day. And so it was very much a complimentary event. And they were as incredibly supportive. As you said, Jake, and I showed this on my channel, I didn't even notice it until I took a picture of my pass. It literally said Vintage Trade Night on the back of the pass as one of the things that they were promoting. So to work with those guys, yes, very unique scenario, very, very complimentary with the show. The show was backing it 100%. It was literally across the street from the event. Everybody was staying at the hotel. Logistically, it sets up perfectly. Is that going to be something we can accomplish in the future? I'm not sure, but I think it's something that really has the potential to grow into something that could be at many, many bigger card shows as a complimentary event. So
let me throw in a couple of things. And I had to write them down because I'm the guy at this point in my life where I walk into the kitchen and I forgot what I went into the kitchen for by the time I get to the kitchen. So I wrote down, there were three main things that I think why it's a great idea. Number one, like Mike just said, one of the biggest things to come out of it was how much fun the trade night was. So if it's going to draw people to a show, I can sell some of my stuff. I can get some crazy good deals because people are just looking to move stuff. So for one, it increases the satisfaction of the people who attended. You know, they go, that was great, especially that trade night. And I'm not going to just go to the trade night. I'm going to go to the show while I'm there. So it's going to be an attractive thing to get more people to events if there's a trade night, because they got great deals. They were able to liquidate. But another piece of it is, you know, Mookie Chilson is a perfect example. Dealers don't want to sell $10 cards. Dealers want to sell $4,000 cards. That's where they really make their margin. And Mookie couldn't afford the 49 Bowman Satchel Paige, but he sold so much stuff at trade night. The next morning, he woke up and went straight over there and he got the 49 Bowman Satchel Paige because he earned enough money at trade night. So Mookie did the dirty work of the $5-10 cards for the dealers. And then he went in and he bought the big card, which is where Bill Chappell really makes his margin, is on a card like that. So it is good for the dealers. It is good for the attenders, and it is good for the growth of the event. So anyone who's against it, they're just short-sighted. They don't understand how much positivity comes out of that.
The thing I should mention, I forgot to mention about Ryan Nolan. was that there are shows in Florida that were kicking him out because he was doing trades like in the lobby.
I saw that.
And
Yeah.
that's just insane. Short-sighted. This is a kid who was like so incredibly energetic and giving such promotion to these shows, and they're just treating him like, like he's a criminal or something.
They didn't just throw him out. They sued him. They tried to sue him.
Oh, that's right.
They tried to sue him because somebody approached him with some hockey cards, a binder full of hockey cards. He ended up in the lobby looking at the hockey cards, and they tried to sue him and said, "You weren't set up as a dealer. You shouldn't be buying at the show."
Give me a break. If people don't think this happens at every single card show that happens everywhere in the country, every weekend of all the time. Like, I bought 2 cards from a friend of ours who at the White Plains show before I bought any cards from anybody else. It was a deal we had already agreed to. Actually, we had agreed to buy one. I agreed to buy 1 card from him, and then he had another card that I wanted, and I bought that one from him too. Like, I bought and traded so many cards at shows that had nothing that were not from vendors. Like, this is just, it's not the reality. If we can have a more organized form of that, then all the better.
Mike, you're quiet. You have thoughts?
Nope, I'm not shy.
All right. Well, I'm gonna poke the bear a little bit here, because the next question is for you, Mike.
What kind of a question is that? Like,
you got to flip-flop this, because the better question is, does Cleveland have any chance whatsoever of beating the Celtics? And the answer is, they do have a chance. Cleveland has a chance of beating the Celtics, but it's not a great chance. And even Vegas is looking at the odds. The odds of Cleveland beating the Celtics are very, very low. The betting odds, which of course are a little different than actual probabilities. But the Celtics are going to blow their way through the Eastern Conference, assuming health, and they're going to end up facing most likely Oklahoma City. And then you have a tough battle, but the Celtics are still going to win.
I mean, I think that it could be similar to last year, where I think that the consensus was that it was going to be Denver in the finals, and that was the big question: is how are the Celtics going to match up with Denver? And Denver got beat, and they ended up playing Dallas, and it wasn't much of a series, except for Game 4 was a weird blowout by the Mavs blew the Celtics out. Other than that, it wasn't, it wasn't close. The Celtics haven't lost a playoff series since 2023, and they had none of the series last year went beyond 5 games, I don't think, right?
No, they went 16-3. They'll have those blowout losses, because when you shoot 50+% of your shots from 3-point range, you're going to have an off night. And that off night, that might happen once, maybe twice in a 7-game series, but it's not going to happen 4 times.
Yeah.
And so then you need to battle them in other ways, because the Celtics aren't going to have 4 bad shooting games, but you need to hope that you're going to get them somewhere else. And it's a numbers game, and they're not going to be easy to beat.
Well, I think that Cleveland had nearly a historical season. They're extraordinarily talented, well coached. They have home court advantage. I think Cleveland's going to win the series. So I guess we'll come back to these video clips. Can be historically.
I'll bet you $50.
Celtics were historically wow. Celtics are a historically great team on the road this year. Historically great. They were better on the road than they were at home this year, I believe.
But as a Knicks fan, I can say that the Knicks have 0 chance of making the Eastern Conference Finals this year. I hope they beat Detroit. That'll be fun to watch. But
Detroit's really good.
Yeah,
they might not beat Detroit, and if they beat Detroit and they move on, they would lose to the Celtics in 5 games.
Does Greg have an opinion? Greg is quiet.
No, Greg doesn't care. Greg's. I grew up rooting for the Celtics because I loved Larry Bird, and he was on TV every weekend morning. And so I have a little bit of a connection to the Celtics. I know how much the Celtics mean to Mike. So I just assumed that the Celtics win because I know it would mean a lot to him.
He wore the shirt. Did you wear the shirt because you knew the question was coming? Is that?
No, I actually was wearing this sweatshirt yesterday, and then I just put it on again this morning because it's Saturday.
Laundry. You need to
Different
do
undershirt
laundry?
though. Different undershirt.
Oh, yeah.
I was wearing a Celtics
Oh,
undershirt.
I wear the same.
yesterday.
I'll wear the same sweatshirt a couple days in a row. Like that's
Yeah,
not a big
That's
deal.
true. If you
I
got
always
something
change the
that
undershirt,
you
though.
can get away with it. So, fourth question is back to cards.
Fifth question.
Fifth question.
Fifth question. I'm sorry. Fifth question. Is it
He's a
too
lawyer,
early to prepare
not a
your
mathematician.
national what list?
I'm going to take this because no.
Okay.
The answer is no.
Yeah.
You should always have a list of cards you're targeting, no matter what. I have a list at all times. I'm going through it on my channel a little bit slowly. And then when you're at the national, you should also see other cards that you say, oh, I didn't know I wanted that, but I do now.
I 100% agree. Like I rejigger and change my lists up quite a bit. I just kind of made like an update to it over the course of the last week. I have like a goal card list. I have like a sort of more gettable card list, and then I have my lists for my specific PCs that right now are really just Yaz and Ted Williams. And I work through those lists. The national wouldn't like that coming up wouldn't preclude me from buying one of the bigger goal cards if I have the opportunity and the budget. I have a specific money budget that I'm putting money into every month for the national. If the right card came up and that was on my goal list, I could eat into that, or I could sell other stuff off to buy that. But that goal card list, my hope is maybe to knock one or two of those off at the national, depending on what I can find. But those lists are always there. And it was, it's funny, like talking about, live streams like earlier this week. I think Dave Blue Jacket 66 was on with Sammy and Jason, and Dave was like, well, I go to a show and I don't have a list. And like other people were chiming in, like Orlando, others were like, I don't have a list either. I'm like, how? Like, how do you go to a show and you don't have a list? Like you don't, I just.
But Dave has an idea of what he's looking for, though.
Sure,
Yeah.
but like right. I guess there's a difference. Right? It's like you have to have an idea of what you're looking for, but also just like I can't. I'm such a planner, and I'm such a like organizer, that kind of thing. Like, there's no way that I could go and not have a specific list to go to, especially a huge show. So absolutely,
I have too many cards that I'm looking for, so it's not like I go in saying I need to get these 3 cards, but I have hundreds of cards that I want. So it's pretty easy for me to find a handful that I really love.
I think that I could talk about what I had for dinner last night for an hour, so I could talk about this for at least 2 hours. But I actually think that sometimes having a list creates a problem where people feel the need to make their list and they force things that aren't there. Like if you're like,
Not when your list is huge.
I just need, I want to get married. I want to get a girlfriend. Well, that's the only option I got. I'll just go with it. You don't get married if it's not the right person, and you don't make a big purchase if it's not the right card. So sometimes when you have a list and you show up and you're like, these are the 3 cards I'm coming home with, and the right one isn't there, you end up coming up home with the wrong card. So I think you need to have a general idea of what you like and what you want to be in your eventual collection. But then, I mean, I wasn't planning on getting, a 33 Carl Hubble, but I came home with a 33 Carl Hubble because there was a beautiful 33 Carl Hubble that was a good deal. And I wanted to have it eventually in my collection, but I wasn't planning on it being in Strongsville.
Nope.
Oh, there you go.
I gave you a
So-
solo.
beautiful.
It's like,
Nice.
it's like, okay, if I have an idea of the cards that I eventually want to own, and I walk around and I see one and it just jumps. I wasn't planning on getting a Koufax at that show. It was like number 15 probably on my list, but the right Koufax at the right price showed up and I grabbed it. So I think you should have some ideas, like a big list, and then you should find the one that just jumps at you. But if you go into the national with 2 or 3 cards on your list, I think that you're making a mistake. You're going to force it. You're going to force something that's not there.
Yeah.
It's like the point guard who goes, I'm going to hit this guy. I'm going to find him open. I'm going to get an assist on this. No, you hit him if he's open. You don't hit him if he's covered just because you want to hit him. Like you have to make smart decisions. So have an idea, but not a list.
I love Greg's analogies. They're always so apt.
and
So-
detailed.
So two lists. I got two major types of lists. I have the sets that I'm building and what cards I need from those sets. So, like, I completed my 54 Red Heart set because I had that list set up and I found the right dealer who had the right cards. And then I have my list of, big cards. So I went into Strongsville, red Cobb portrait, high eye appeal, no blemishes that are going to bother me. So I looked through the whole show for that one card, and I found two possibilities, and then I ended up getting one of them on Friday before the show even opened. But I had, but let's say that card didn't exist. I wouldn't force it. Greg is absolutely right. I would not have forced it. I would not have purchased one of the versions of that card that didn't meet my specifications. But I had alternates to that. I had about 5 or 6 alternates in the general price range that were cards that I wanted, and I didn't have to go to the alternate list. So I don't have a list for the national yet because I don't know, A, what my budget is going to be. It's going to be based on how much money I make selling cards at 3 local card shows. I don't know if I'm going to have to spend money on stuff, what my ultimate amount of money is going to be. I have certain things that I'm going to go to shows before the national. I'm going to buy shows. I'm going to buy cards in auctions. REA ends this Sunday. I think REA
A week
ends
from Sunday. A week from Sunday.
A week from, okay. So there are auctions that are going to be ending. So there's a lot of variables that are going to take place between now and the end of July that are going to affect what my list is going to be. I made my list for Strongsville in the weeks up to Strongsville. So I think I'm going to start doing my list, which will be major goals. Can't get those. Here are the alternates. And then, of course, all the sets that I still have cards left in that I need to build. So that's kind of the way I'm approaching it. So I think that my answer to this question is yes, it is too early to make your national list now. Mike disagrees. Mike is over there. No, he's over there. He disagrees because he's got his what's it called? The
Ace 100, attainable collection of NV 100. But then there's also hundreds of cards outside of that I want too. So, and I like Greg's clarification. I don't go in there saying I need to have these 3 cards. I go in there with an idea of the cards that I want, but they have to match the condition I want them in and the value, the price that I want to pay for them. I've had been looking at this card, like, you don't need to spotlight me, Dan, this same card for over a year, waiting for the right one to come up at the right price. And if they don't look right, I don't bother looking at them.
And so my point, I completely agree. I think we kind of all are on the same page, except again, I in terms of like what is on your list or like having a list going into the show, like I definitely have made that mistake when I first got back into collecting, which is just like, yeah, I have a list and I'm going to go to a show and I'm just going to buy those cards if they're there. And I looked back and there's a lot of cards in my collection, a lot of which I don't have anymore, that I realized like after the fact, like, why did I buy this? Like, this is just not, like, I just was checking a box. Like this is like this card it doesn't fit with the rest of what I have. And the condition's it's not right. Like, so I do agree with that you can't just force it. But I guess that the difference that I would say that I have, and I think this is where Mike and I are similar, and this is the difference, Dan, is that I don't know that I go into a specific show with a specific list. Like, I have a list that is consistent, ongoing of the stuff that I want. Now, I will say this. There are definitely cards on my list, my various lists, that I don't think I would buy at the National because it's not like I think going to the National is an opportunity to be around and expose myself to cards that I can't see locally in the Boston area or some of the shows around here. It's the opportunity to see those cards. So I'm not going to go to the National and buy a 1958 Topps Ted Williams. Like, that's not that there's anything wrong with that. Like, but I can find that at any card show around here that I go to all the time. But what I am going to look for are pre-war cards that maybe only 1 or 2 dealers locally have, or stuff that is like random food issue or that kind of thing. That, to me, I think if I'm going to the National, or if I'm going to go to Strongsville, or if I'm going to drive to the Philly show, or even go to the White Plains show, that's like takes time to get there, that to me, like I don't think I would. I and watch me come back with like from the National with like all 50s Ted Williams and,
Well,
60s
that's
gas cars and stuff like that. But that's my approach. So I want to try to get the scarcer stuff at the bigger shows.
Well, I think that's kind of the Dave Berg theory, that you go into a show, you don't have a list, because a guy like that who has everything is looking for things that he's never seen before, or things that he knows are super rare that you can never expect to see at certain shows. And to a certain extent, I still do that. I mean, I didn't have an 1886 Old Judge Jack Glasscock on my list by any stretch of the imagination, but I bought the card because it's a beautiful card. It's a great example, and the price was several $100s underneath the comps, and the dealer was nice, and I wanted a really good Old Judge card. So, like, that to me is kind of, I guess, sort of the Dave Berg thing, but not quite. But I think that's something that you can never. You're going to leave a show with stuff that's not on your list.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, if it jumps out to you, and you, like, that's what happened to me at last fall's Shriners when I bought my E90-1 Eddie Plank card from Stan Locke. It was not, that card was not on my list. I wanted a Playing Days Eddie Plank card, but that was like, but that card just like leapt out at me from his showcase, and we came to a deal. So yeah, it's never hard and fast, but yeah, have an idea in your mind of what you want, no matter what.
You know what time it is right now?
Rant time.
Rant time. I'm gonna go clockwise, so you're first, Mike. I'm not gonna.
All right.
I'm not gonna to solo you, because one of the best parts of the rant time is being
Ruin
able
my
to see
momentum.
the responses, the facial expressions of the other people. So, wait, did you say you're not going because I'm not soloing you?
No, you ruined my momentum. I started, and then you were like, "Oh, hang on." So, yesterday, I did this video on what I called was a Grail card, and I got a very nice comment from a commenter saying, "You can't call it a Grail card if you have a lot of them." And so I said, "Yeah, I disagree with you. It is. I mean, I spent over a year looking for this card. There are only 50 of them graded by the 55 or 60, graded by the 3 or 4 big companies." And, I thought it was a friendly back and forth, but then his next comment was pretty upset that I was using Grail in an incorrect way. But you can call anything you want a Grail card. It can be a 1988 Topps Ellis Burks, autographed by Ellis Burks in person, if that's your Grail card. And then you can move on to another one. You can have 100 Grail cards that you would love to have, and you would shop for them. And then when you find it, you are so excited. Those are Grail cards. You don't need to be stifled by a narrow definition of Grail card. And you also don't need to get upset when somebody disagrees with you about what a Grail card is.
I commented on that video also. You didn't
always
respond.
Sometimes I'm just not sure what to say. And I almost thought, because sometimes people will come to my defense when somebody says something mean. And I thought, what if I don't give a heart to this comment that Dan left? Will somebody come to my defense? But ultimately, I did. But, I've also, I've trained my commenters to just ignore the trolls, because that's what I do.
You've trained your commenters?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like they're AI or a dog or both.
Right. Correct. They're AI dogs.
Wow.
Jake, your turn.
Okay. The top line of mine is I am stupid. Okay. When we went on the 4 of us were all together on a live stream with Graig it was a couple months ago at this point. And there's quite a bit of grading talk on that episode. And one thing that I said that I look back on now a couple months later, and I'm like, geez, why did I say this? Or what was I thinking? Was the idea that I would be so buying cards because they're in a specific slab, or they're in a, not even talking about a grade necessarily. And a grade is part of it, but buying a card because it's in a specific slab. And that I was so adamantly against the idea of buying cards that are, especially pre-war cards, in PSA slabs, because I hate how they look, and in a lot of cases they're in the Mylar baggie and they look really bad, and that I wouldn't buy cards that were in those slabs, and that I also wouldn't grade with PSA because of that. Well, fast forward to now, and I wish that I everybody else has showed off cards, and I don't have any in front of me except for the ones that are uncut behind me. But I went to the White Plains show and I bought maybe my favorite card I've ever bought in my entire life. I bought a 1915 Cracker Jack Smokey Joe Wood from Stanlock in a PSA 1 slab. And I think that card looks amazing. And I am not going to take it out of that slab. It's going to stay in that slab and it's going to be fine. And what the epiphany that I've had, the realization that I've had, and I can't believe it took me so long to realize this, is don't buy slabs, buy cards. Like, if you buy slabs, you're limiting yourself. I think about all of the cards that I've probably overlooked because they or just like blew past because maybe they were an old card in an old PSA slab. Don't buy slabs, buy cards. Like you can always, if you're not happy with how it looks in the slab and it's a PC card, you can crack it out and put it in a one touch. You can crack it out and send it to SGC. You can have it reholdered by PSA. Do what you can put it. You can crack it out, put it in a binder, do whatever you want with it. Don't get hung up on buy cards. Don't buy slabs. That's my rant.
Your views are evolving, and that doesn't make you stupid.
Well, I just wish that I had that viewpoint before, like 2 or 3 months ago. But that's all. I was stupid, I guess is what I'm saying.
Were we on a live stream? I don't remember that.
It was on. Wow.
Well, it wasn't on your channel, Mike, because you never have us on.
Oh,
I had you on. I had you on just 4 months ago, 5 months ago.
For 10 minutes at the very tail end of your live
you are
stream.
still
You're right, I
bitter
was
about
on.
this. All right, I'm gonna have a 24-hour live stream, Greg, and you are gonna be on
Nice.
all 24 hours.
He can talk about his dinner. You're up, Greg.
All right.
And this, by the way, the mini rant, a tangential rant here, Greg. I have now, because you mentioned this and you made me paranoid about it, I'm not having another live stream because of it. It's made me think you're in my head.
I'm not trying to get in your head. I'm just trying to give you grief. All right, here's my rant. So in Strongsville, Darren buys a really beautiful card. It's got the plastic, sleeve around it, like a lot of us do with our cards. The card, he goes, I can't believe this guy put the price tag not on the sleeve, but on the slab itself, and then put the sleeve over the slab and the grade. And he's like, I hate it when people do that. And he's trying to get the stuff off. So I'm like, oh, here's what you do. You take some of the sticker and you kind of pluck it on there and it pulls the sticky crap off. And then I didn't really think about it, but we were just reminiscing on how annoying it is when people put stickers directly on the slab. And then I had 2 people comment on my Strongsville videos that said, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people put the stickers on the slab and they don't put it on the sleeve. And I'm like, yeah, that's like a thing. I don't understand how this is a thing. If my wife has a little scab on her face, I don't go and, just pick it off of her face. Like, part of the presentation of a card is the slab in which it rests. And when you then deface the slab in which it is currently entombed, you are affecting the presentation. When my wife and kids watch these cooking shows, and one of the grades is based on the look of the meal, the presentation of the dish. And if somebody gets a piece of halibut and some nice vegetables, but it's presented like it's a chili dog, right? It does not do well for the presentation score. And what these dealers and what these people are doing is they are turning a beautiful fillet into a chili dog look by putting the sticker on the slab itself instead of on the 2-cent little sleeve. If you can't afford the 2-cent little sleeve, let me know. My buddy Isaac will get you a great deal on some with the penny sleever. and they're great. So stop doing that, people.
I don't even notice that they're on the slab until I get it home and I go to take it off, and I'm like, "Where's the sleeve?"
Yeah.
I have a even bigger pet peeve to me, and I don't see this very often. My Ricky Henderson rookie card, somebody, and I could get this off with like an alcohol swab or something. Somebody wrote $80 in magic marker on the back of the slab. I'm dead serious. Like it's or they use Sharpie. I think I can get it off with an alcohol swab or something. But they literally wrote it on the slab. Like,
I think Don's Sports Card Center has a. I don't remember who it is, but it's a big star. Frank Thomas, rookie card, slabbed by PSA, and somebody had Frank Thomas sign the slab.
I had a card that I bought recently that had that problem, the sticker on the slab, and then I noticed when I was cleaning it off that there was on another part of the slab left over what must have been from another sticker. So there was 2 of those sticky things that I had to clean off. So highly annoying. Probably the same dealer just upping his price and putting a new sticker on it. So we had vintage trade night. I guess it was a week ago today at Strongsville. It was not my idea. It was Theo's idea that came out of one of John's ideas. So I've said to Theo, let's make sure that this idea doesn't get stolen, because it's a great idea and it manifested itself in a fantastic event that checked every single box that I collect cards for. Social, networking, cards, deals, trades, money, hanging out with the best people in the hobby that I know. It did everything for me that I wanted to have at any event. And so we have this vintage trade night. And I think it's the first one ever, although I think, Greg, you kind of disagree with me on this, but I feel like it's something that it was so successful. The word has gotten out. There's so many videos of it. And it really is such one of those things like slap yourself on the side of the head and say, why didn't I think of that? And a lot of people are probably thinking, why didn't I think of that? And I think a lot of people are going to try to do it. But I'm saying right now, I'm not threatening anybody, but I'm saying right now, I'm a lawyer. We got this idea first, and we're going to keep this idea, and we're going to use this idea as many times as we can in as many successful situations as we can, because it's a great idea. It's great for the hobby. It's great for our friends, and we don't want somebody else stealing the idea. So do not steal vintage trade night. You hear me? That's my rant.
Wow.
Don't be fooled by that fancy name, and don't steal vintage trade night.
I'm scared. That's terrifying.
Gentlemen, we went 7 minutes over, but that's the way it goes. Sorry about the choppiness. I'm not sure what was going on here, but checked my computer, and I don't know. My first 2 videos went fine.
Everything's been great for me.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
This was fun.
So, Greg, Mike, Jake, we got another one of these in 6 weeks. It's episode 3. I'll start working on the questions right now, tomorrow.
Look forward to it.
No, I literally did the questions like 5 minutes before I sent the text out. But it's all going through my head anyway. It's not like I'm not living this thing, So as absurd as the questions are going to be and ended up being, I feel like you guys handled it really, really well, and I want to thank you again for your contributions. And I think the rookie class is doing very well. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're in the 2nd episode, so you're the rookie.
All right.
But it's not community
guys,
service where I'm not the community that's being served. So
you guys kept the hazing to a minimum, and I appreciate it.
Yes. So I hope the card community enjoyed this video.
Ouch.
I thought we were going to get through this.
Community Service Project, we'll see you another time in 6 weeks. So take care, guys.